politics and developments to what's happening in West Asia, in the Middle East, ladies and gentlemen. The situation continues to escalate. Israel's latest strikes on Hezbollah targets killed over 500 people in Lebanon, including 50 children, 94 women, marking the deadliest day in cross-border warfare since 2006. Now, the Israel military, or the IDF, has warned the southern and eastern Lebanon citizens to evacuate ahead of its widening air campaign on Hezbollah strongholds across the country. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu himself issued a video statement where he urged Lebanese citizens, saying, "My fight is not with you. Israel's fight is not with you. It's with the Hezbollah. Don't be their human shields. Vacate this area because you can all come back to your places once we finish these strikes and targeting Hezbollah." Now, this has also triggered fears of an all-out war in the region since Gaza conflict erupted on the 7th of October. The question we ask, is this entire situation on the precipice of escalation, this conflict or this attack against terror outfits, this crackdown? And is there a possibility that there could be ramifications closer home? Let's go across to our guests first, get their thoughts. We may have some more inputs, but we'll go to that in a bit. Professor Brahma Chellaney is with us. And Elad Simchayoff, Israeli journalist, should also join us. Professor Brahma Chellaney, your thoughts?
Israel is following a strategy of escalation to achieve de-escalation. In other words, de-escalation through the route of escalation. The problem with that strategy is that it carries risks of a wider conflict, a conflict that could drag in Iran. The two things that stand out, that the war in Gaza is nearing 1 year in duration, and the Hamas is still able to recruit new fighters, and the Israeli military now acknowledges publicly that wiping out Hamas is not a feasible military objective. Now, the problem for Israel is this, that even in relation to Hezbollah, which is a more powerful militia than Hamas, there is no real military solution. And right now, it's very clear that Israel has the advantages of technology, of intelligence, and these airstrikes that it's carrying out in Lebanon, these devastating strikes, are going to hammer the Hezbollah. But if it wants to significantly degrade Hezbollah, it'll have to send ground troops into Lebanon. And sending ground troops into Lebanon would mean fighting on Hezbollah's turf. And Hezbollah is a very resilient militia that's been shown repeatedly over the decades. And taking Hezbollah on Hezbollah's turf in Lebanon will be a different ball game, one that will carry great risks for Israel, and especially for Bibi, the Prime Minister, because after the fact that nearly a year of war in Gaza has not finished Hamas, the last thing that Bibi wants is a bloody conflict in Lebanon that drags on against Hezbollah.
Elad, your thoughts? Because there are also two separate factions. People are making a point that you took on the Sunni factions first, now it's the Shia factions. So the entire Muslim world may just be up at arms right now. And is Israel willing to do this, or is there a calculated escalation here?
I think it's definitely calculated. I think that it's very visible from Israel's actions for the past 11 months that Israel is not looking or taking any steps in order to drag the region into an all-out war. But it's important to bear in mind that Hezbollah started attacking Israel unprovokedly on October 8th, right after the horrible Hamas massacre on October 7th. You can almost take these two fronts and put them separately in that way, although they are connected, obviously. But Hezbollah has started an unprovoked attack against Israel the day after Hamas started its own attack. Israel has no presence in Lebanon since the year 2000. Israel has no claim in Lebanon, does not control any aspect of the Lebanese life. In that aspect, it's a completely different story. Lebanon is an independent state. Hezbollah is a part of that state. One might suggest that Hezbollah took control of that sovereign state. But when we look at the two different fronts, the southern front of Israel in Gaza and the northern front in Lebanon, these are two very separate stories, and it has similarities, but it has a lot of difference as well. I have to say one more thing, that we are currently in the midst of a tipping point in terms of the war that is being engaged in the region, because up until now, the main focal point was Gaza, obviously. As Brahma mentioned, we're almost a year into this conflict in Gaza, where it seems to be taking a different stage at this point. It's not as intensified as it was in the first few months after October 7th. And now it seems like the focal point is Lebanon, Hezbollah, and the northern front of Israel. We're seeing Israel carrying out more and more attacks, more and more actions, whether they're directed assassinations against Hezbollah's leaders or whether a more widespread attack against Hezbollah's military outposts and targets. We're seeing Hezbollah widening its range of missile attack. So we are currently in a very, very complex and delicate situation where we'll need to see where it will develop.
Well, but is Israel biting more than it can chew? Because there seems to be a certain wearing of the patience with Israel, because you first said the fight is only with Hamas. Now you're saying we can't wipe out Hamas, and now you've opened up a front with the Hezbollah.
And again, I think the one who opened up the front is Hezbollah. Hezbollah started this attack against Israel on October 8th. It depends on who you're asking, because the question of whether or not you can wipe out Hamas is regarding the term. What do you call wiping out Hamas? Is wiping out Hamas eliminating each and every Hamas member or each and every person in Gaza who believes or relates to the Hamas agenda and way of life? No, I don't think that anybody would say that that's Israel's goal. Israel's goal since day one has been to wipe out Hamas as the ruling regime, the terror regime ruling Gaza, to dismantle Hamas military capabilities, and first and foremost to make sure that Hamas will not be able to carry out attacks such as the one it did in October 7. And Hamas itself said that its aim is to carry out as much as October 7th as possible. So I think that Israel's main aim in terms of Hamas is making sure this will not happen again, that Gaza will not be a source of a security threat to Israel. And now Israel can focus its sights on Hezbollah because the situation in the northern front is a lot more complicated than the one in Gaza right now.
Right. We've got news on these developments closer home, and that could impact us here in Bharat, because in the 1.4 billion population, we've got nearly 27 to 30 crore Muslims here in our country and across all sects of Islam.